My beloved sisters, let me begin with something important. Being smart isn't about degrees or certificates. It's about wisdom, and wisdom is something Allah grants to those who seek it with sincerity, humility, and purpose. A smart woman knows her worth comes from Allah. She understands that her identity is not tied to worldly labels or the approval of people. Society often tries to define a woman's value through external things, her appearance, her popularity, her wealth, or her social status. But a woman of wisdom sees beyond that. She knows that the Creator has already honored her with dignity and purpose. She reflects on how the Quran addressed her, how Islam elevated her, and how her role as a believer is far greater than what any trend or culture may suggest. When she walks in the world, she doesn't carry the weight of needing validation from others. She reminds herself that her value was written long before anyone could comment on her looks or achievements. She finds peace in her faith, not in the number of compliments she receives or the attention she attracts. She knows that her worth is linked to her righteousness, her taqwa, her connection with her Lord. She recalls the words of Allah, indeed, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. That verse alone gives her a foundation that no worldly voice can shake. She doesn't seek her reflection in the mirror of society, but in the mirror of the Quran. When the world tells her she's not enough, she remembers that Allah already created her in the best of forms. She holds on to the belief that her inner beauty, her sincerity, her patience, and her character are what truly define her in the eyes of her Lord. She does not compare herself to others. She knows that every soul has its own journey, its own tests, and its own timeline. Just because someone else appears to be ahead doesn't mean she is behind. She's not in a race for the dunya. She's striving for the akhirah. She understands that fame, beauty, and applause fade, but what remains are her deeds, her intentions, and her relationship with the one who sees all. She doesn't allow the standards of others to dictate how she feels about herself. Instead, she raises her standards to match the level of her faith, her purpose, and her responsibility as a Muslimah. She respects herself because she knows that self-respect is part of a man. She doesn't allow herself to be used or misled. She doesn't try to fit into every space, because she knows that not every place deserves her presence. Her dignity is non-negotiable. She may not have everything the world praises, but she holds tightly to what truly matters: her modesty, her patience, her faith, her dua. She speaks with purpose, walks with humility, and lives with sincerity. She knows that her worth is not found in how loud she is, but in how authentic and righteous she remains even when no one is watching. She takes pride in her identity as a Muslim woman. She doesn't shy away from her values to please others. Her hijab is not just on her head. It's in her attitude, her speech, her choices, and her heart. She understands that being honored by Allah is far greater than being accepted by people who don't even know her reality. She reflects on the lives of great women in Islam: Maryam, Khadija, Aisha, Fatima. None of them needed worldly approval to be loved by Allah. Their worth came from their faith, their strength, and their unwavering trust in their Lord. She aspires to follow in their footsteps, not to impress the world, but to earn the pleasure of the one who created it. She chooses silence over unnecessary conflict. A wise woman understands that not every opinion needs a reaction, and not every insult deserves a response. She has trained herself to pause before she speaks, to think before she reacts, and to seek the bigger picture in moments of tension. Her silence is not weakness. It is a sign of emotional strength and maturity. She knows that true control is not in raising her voice, but in lowering her ego. When someone tries to provoke her, she reminds herself that silence can often be louder than words. She doesn't allow herself to be dragged into arguments, that disturb her peace or harm her dignity. She knows that the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught the value of silence, and she applies that wisdom in her daily life. She understands that her time and energy are too valuable to be wasted on petty disputes. She protects her emotional space the same way one would protect a precious jewel. She doesn't engage in back and forth debates just to prove a point or to win temporary victories. She chooses peace of mind over pride. She has realized that sometimes walking away from a situation is not giving up, it's growing up. Her silence is intentional. It's not because she doesn't know what to say, it's because she knows what not to say. She has recognized that words have power, and once spoken, they cannot be taken back. So she uses them carefully, with purpose, with awareness. When she's in a disagreement, she doesn't aim to defeat the other person. She aims to understand, or if necessary, to detach with grace. She remembers the hadith that promises a house in paradise for the one who leaves arguments, even when they are right. That promise alone is enough for her to bite her tongue, even when her heart wants to respond. She doesn't allow her emotions to control her. Instead, she controls her emotions through wisdom, patience, and the remembrance of Allah. She seeks reward in holding back rather than revenge in lashing out. She values harmony in her relationships, whether it is with family, friends, or community. She doesn't escalate drama, she diffuses it with calmness. Her presence brings ease, not tension. People trust her because they know she will not embarrass or expose them. Even when she is hurt, she maintains her character. Even when she is misunderstood, she trusts that Allah knows the truth. She doesn't rush to defend herself in every situation because she knows that time reveals all things, and sincerity doesn't need loud explanations. She remains firm not through argument but through inner clarity. She turns to dua before turning to confrontation. She seeks Allah's guidance in moments of confusion. She prays for patience when tested by people who don't value respect. She recites the Quran and finds verses that calm her heart and remind her of her purpose. She understands that silence can be a form of strength, especially when the heart is clean and the intentions are pure. She keeps her tongue busy with hikr rather than debate, and her mind focused on what truly matters in the sight of Allah. Her silence builds her character. It gives her space to reflect, to heal, and to remain composed. It saves her from regret and keeps her reputation intact. It teaches her that sometimes dignity is found not in having the last word, but in having the strength to walk away with grace. She practices this silence not just with her mouth, but also with her expressions, her online posts, her reactions, and her decisions. She has mastered the art of inner peace, and it reflects in how she deals with others, even in the most difficult moments. She protects her heart and waits for what is halal. A wise woman understands that her heart is not something to be given freely. It is a sacred space meant to be preserved, cherished, and guarded with wisdom. She knows that in a world that romanticizes instant love and temporary emotions, true value lies in patience and purity. She does not rush into relationships out of loneliness or pressure. She waits for what is written for her with contentment and trust in the plan of Allah. Her love is not for display, not for experimentation, not for games. It is reserved for someone who will respect her, commit to her, and walk with her in the path of faith, not desire. She is not naive to the ways of the world, but she chooses to rise above them. While others may follow trends that normalize casual relationships and emotional attachment without commitment, she knows that every connection of the heart leaves a mark on the soul. She does not allow herself to be emotionally drained by those who are not serious or sincere. She doesn't chase anyone for love, attention, or validation. Instead, she builds herself spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, so that when the right person comes with the right intention, she is ready. She believes that the one written for her will find her in sujud, not in DM. She finds strength in the story of Maryam as a woman honored by Allah, protected by her modesty, and chosen for her purity. She reflects on the lives of the noble women in Islam who held their hearts with dignity, who placed their trust in Allah before placing it in any human. She reminds herself that love without boundaries leads to pain, but love within the halal brings barakah and tranquility. Her boundaries are not limitations, they are protection, protection of her peace, her self-worth, and her future. She lowers her gaze not just with her eyes, but also with her heart. She doesn't entertain thoughts or fantasies that will harm her soul. She avoids situations that may lead to regret. She keeps her heart busy with the remembrance of Allah, so it doesn't become attached to what is not hers. She knows that emotional attachment before commitment can lead to spiritual damage. She doesn't allow herself to be sweet, talked into anything that compromises her values. Her modesty is not only in her clothing, but also in her emotions. She understands that love is not meant to be begged for. It is meant to be honored, protected, and nurtured through the right means. She knows that protecting her heart doesn't mean being cold or emotionless. It means being wise, selective, and faithful. She prays for the one who is written for her, even if she hasn't met him yet. She trusts that when the time is right, Allah will bring them together in a way that is clean, respectful, and blessed. She focuses on becoming the kind of woman a righteous man would pray for. She doesn't waste her time building a temporary story with someone who isn't prepared for forever. Her love is not cheap, it is valuable, and it deserves to be honored through nikah, not through secrecy or sin. She is strong enough to walk away from anything that threatens her peace or her principles. She doesn't fall for sweet words that come without action. She waits for the man who comes with honesty, who seeks her hand through her wali, who fears Allah in how he treats her. She knows that the one who truly loves her will never ask her to disobey her Lord. Her heart is soft, but it is protected. She listens to her intuition, her deen, and the advice of those who truly care for her. She doesn't put her happiness in someone else's hands. Her joy comes from knowing that her heart is safe with the one who created it. She surrounds herself with people who remind her of Allah. A smart woman understands that her environment plays a powerful role in shaping her mindset, her behavior, and her direction in life. She knows that friendship is not just about laughter and shared interests, but about connection on a deeper level. Connection that uplifts the soul and draws it closer to the Creator. She chooses companions who remind her of prayer when she forgets, who speak of Jannah when the world distracts her, who correct her with love when she slips, and who rejoice in her growth with sincerity. She doesn't measure friendships by how often they meet or how many pictures they take together, but by how much goodness they bring into each other's lives. When she sits with her friends, her heart feels lighter, not heavier. She leaves those gatherings with a sense of spiritual clarity, not confusion or guilt. She recognizes that not everyone deserves a seat at her table. She's careful about who she allows to influence her thoughts and emotions. If a friendship leads her to gossip, backbiting, envy, or heedlessness, she distances herself gently and respectfully. She values peace and purpose over popularity. She's not afraid of being alone for a while if it means protecting her faith. She trusts that Allah will replace what she lets go of for His sake with something better. She understands the hadith that says a person is on the religion of their close companion, so she chooses companions whose presence motivates her to be better in her deen, not just better in dunya. She seeks out people who remind her of Allah not just through words, but through their actions. She observes how they treat others, how they react in hardship, how they prioritize salah, how they speak about the unseen. She looks for sincerity, not perfection. She appreciates those who are honest about their struggles but are still striving. She respects those who are kind, consistent, and rooted in Islamic values. She's drawn to those who are humble and who speak from the heart. She surrounds herself with people who make her want to remember Allah more, pray with more khushu, and speak with more adab. She builds friendships with intention. When she gives her time and attention to someone, she makes sure it's for the sake of Allah. She checks her heart to ensure that love is clean and that it doesn't cross the bounds of modesty or self-respect. She makes dua for her friends in their absence and appreciates those who do the same. She's not possessive or jealous. She's supportive and understanding. She knows that real friendship is a source of strength in both this world and the hereafter. She hopes to walk into Jannah with those who walked with her in remembrance of Allah in this life. She is wise in letting go of those who repeatedly bring negativity, mock her efforts in deen, or distract her from her goals. She doesn't hold grudges, but she doesn't hold on to toxic patterns either. She keeps her circle clean and intentional. She prefers meaningful solitude over empty company. She knows that Allah is always with her and that true companionship begins with the Quran, with hikmah, with seeking knowledge, and with building a life surrounded by sincere souls. She finds beauty in halakas, in shared goals of memorizing verses, in conversations that revolve around seeking forgiveness, trusting Allah, and staying hopeful. She keeps in mind that her companions in this world can either become her intercessors in the next life or her regrets. She's not concerned with having a large following or being in the center of attention. She's focused on quality, not quantity. She cherishes those who inspire her to give more in charity, to think twice before speaking, to reflect before acting, and to live with awareness of Allah. Her friends are not perfect, but they carry the same desire to grow, to repent, and to become better Muslims. Together they remind each other that life is short, that this world is temporary, and that the greatest success is in pleasing Allah. She uses social media with modesty and purpose. A smart woman understands that every action, even in the digital world, is being recorded. She doesn't treat the online space as separate from her deen, knowing that Allah sees her posts, comments, likes, and shares just as clearly as he sees her offline life. She remembers that modesty is not only in clothing, but also in how she presents herself, what she chooses to show, and the intention behind her presence online. She doesn't seek validation from likes or followers because her self-worth is rooted in her faith, not in virtual applause. She guards her eyes and ears, carefully choosing what content to consume and what to scroll past, knowing that what enters the heart through the screen can either uplift her soul or corrupt it. She reflects before posting. She asks herself, is this beneficial? Is this pleasing to Allah? Is this sincere? She doesn't share every part of her life with the world. She knows the value of privacy, dignity, and spiritual protection. She doesn't fall into the trap of constantly displaying her beauty, her possessions, or her achievements, because she knows that showing too much can invite jealousy, arrogance, and even the evil eye. Instead, she chooses to share reminders, knowledge, positivity, and reflections that might help someone else grow in their own journey. She stays away from online arguments and debates that lead nowhere. She doesn't involve herself in gossip threads or controversial topics that stir fitna. She scrolls past drama because her peace is more valuable than proving a point. She knows that her character should be consistent, whether she's behind a screen or face. She avoids sarcasm, rudeness, and mockery, even when others are doing it, because her speech represents her inner state. She seeks barakah in her words, and avoids content that leads to heedlessness or wastefulness. She follows accounts that uplift her spiritually and unfollows those that constantly promote comparison, materialism, or indecency. She is not entertained by content that contradicts her values. She doesn't let the trends of the online world dictate her goals or self-image. She doesn't compare her life to filtered highlights of others. Instead, she focuses on gratitude, knowing that what people post is only a fragment of their reality. She knows that chasing online perfection is a trap that leaves the soul feeling empty. She protects her heart from falling into envy or self-pity by reminding herself that rizq, beauty, and happiness come from Allah in different forms for everyone. She uses her platform, big or small, with responsibility. She sees every follower as a trust. If she influences even one person, she wants it to be towards goodness. Whether she shares reminders, books, recipes, or reflections, she does so with sincerity and moderation. She doesn't use social media to show off but to connect with purpose. She's mindful of her time online. She limits it so that it doesn't take away from her salah, her Quran, her family, or her rest. She knows that her time is a gift and that endless scrolling is a silent thief of energy and focus. She also guards her modesty in how she interacts. She avoids unnecessary conversations, especially with the opposite gender. She doesn't flirt or reply in ways that cross Islamic boundaries. She holds herself with dignity and understands that online respect is just as important as offline adab. She doesn't chase attention or post to attract compliments. She doesn't let trends redefine her identity as a Muslimah. Her self-control online is a reflection of her self-respect. She chooses intention over impulse and faith over fame. She reminds herself that her online life will testify for or against her on the day of judgment. She chooses to be a woman whose presence online is filled with light, respect, and purpose. She never stops seeking knowledge and self-growth. A smart woman knows that learning does not end with a school degree or a university certificate. She understands that knowledge is a lifelong journey, and every day is an opportunity to grow closer to Allah, to improve her character, and to become a better version of herself. She doesn't wait for someone to push her. She takes initiative. Whether it's attending Islamic classes, reading books, listening to beneficial lectures, or even asking sincere questions, she remains curious, open, and humble. She doesn't feel shy to say, "I don't know," because she knows that admitting ignorance is the first step to gaining wisdom. She learns not to impress others, but to purify herself and please her Creator. She values both religious and worldly knowledge, and she knows how to balance them. She studies the Quran not just to recite it beautifully, but to understand its meanings, to reflect on its guidance, and to live by its words. She studies the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to find practical examples of patience, leadership, love, and sacrifice. She learns about the women of the past who were strong, intelligent, and spiritually grounded, and she uses them as her role models. She doesn't rely only on emotion or tradition. She wants her faith to be rooted in understanding, not just imitation. She constantly evaluates herself. She reflects on her strengths and her weaknesses. She makes dua for growth, and she works hard for it. She admits when she is wrong, and she takes correction as a gift, not an insult. When someone advises her with sincerity, she listens and thanks them, because she knows that advice is a form of mercy. She reads, she listens, she thinks, and she evolves. Her heart is not arrogant or stubborn. It is soft and teachable. She knows that learning is not only about books. It's about listening to life, watching her reactions, observing others, and learning from mistakes. She surrounds herself with people who challenge her to think deeper. who remind her to stay grounded, who support her in her journey of becoming better. She doesn't envy the knowledge of others, she admires it, and she uses it as motivation to improve herself. She is not afraid to change when she realizes there's a better way. Her mind is not fixed on ego, it is open to truth. She doesn't learn just to speak or to argue, but to apply, to embody, and to live what she learns. She knows that knowledge without action is a burden, and action without knowledge is dangerous. She also learns about herself. She studies her emotions, her habits, her reactions. She strives to understand what triggers her, what calms her, and what helps her grow. She sets goals not just for her career, but for her faith, her family, her character. She knows that self-growth includes spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical dimensions. She cares for her body as a trust from Allah. She protects her mental space from negativity and her spiritual heart from arrogance. She's not in competition with anyone, only with her past self. She makes time for reflection, for journaling, for silence. She learns from every hardship, every test, every delay. She takes lessons from her own life and from the lives of others. She knows that Allah is constantly teaching her through experiences, through people, and through every moment of her journey. She doesn't waste her energy blaming others or complaining about what she lacks. Instead, she asks, "What can I learn from this? And how can I grow from this?" She walks through life as a student, always observing, always evolving, always seeking light in the form of knowledge and truth. She prays consistently, even in times of ease. A smart woman understands that worship is not reserved for moments of desperation. She knows that true connection with Allah is built during both hardship and comfort, sadness and joy. When everything in her life seems to be going well, she does not become heedless. She doesn't allow blessings to make her forget the one who gave them. Instead, she increases in gratitude, and Salah becomes her way of thanking Allah, not just seeking from Him. She maintains her prayers on time with focus and sincerity, knowing that the most successful are those who guard their Salah. Her relationship with Allah is not seasonal or situational. It is constant, grounded in love and trust. She finds peace in her sujud not only when she is broken, but even when her heart is full. She doesn't only cry to Allah when she is hurt. She speaks to Him when she is happy, grateful, and hopeful. She understands that Salah is not a burden but a gift. It is her time to disconnect from the world and reconnect with her purpose. It is a reminder, 5 times a day, that her life is about more than just tasks, goals, or people. It is about returning to the one who created her. She sees each Salah as a moment of spiritual realignment, a pause that protects her from arrogance, heedlessness, and spiritual laziness. She does not allow the ease of life to make her distant from the one who controls it. She knows that just as tests are a form of purification, blessings are a test of gratitude. She doesn't skip prayers when she's busy or delay them because of her schedule. She organizes her life around Salah, not the other way around. Her priorities are clear. Her success is not measured by worldly accomplishments alone, but by how consistent and sincere she is in her worship. She prays not because life is hard, but because faith is essential. She prays with heart, not just with motion. Her mind is present, her words are sincere, and her posture reflects humility. She prepares for Salah like she's preparing to meet the most important person in her life. She understands the value of wudu, the presence of angels, and the reality of standing before her Lord. She doesn't rush through her prayers. She takes her time to feel the words, to reflect on the meanings, to ask with sincerity. Her Salah is not a task to check off. It is a meeting she looks forward to, a refuge she runs to, a moment where she feels whole again. She makes dua not only when she's in need, but as a daily habit. She asks for protection, guidance, and strength, even when everything seems calm. She thanks Allah for things she once prayed for. She doesn't wait for hardship to remember how much she depends on her Lord. She prays Qiyam when others sleep, not just because she needs something, but because she wants to connect deeper. Her prayers are full of gratitude, tears, hope, and love. She treats Salah as a source of energy, healing, and emotional release. She prays in public and in private with consistency and discipline. Whether at home, work, or traveling, she ensures that her connection with Allah remains uninterrupted. She doesn't compromise her Salah for social convenience or worldly engagements. She knows that her prayer is the key to peace in her heart, clarity in her thoughts, and strength in her soul. Even on her busiest days, she doesn't let the day pass without standing in front of Allah. She understands that prayer is not a favor she does for Allah, it is a favor Allah has done for her. She treasures it, protects it, and relies on it as her anchor in both chaos and calm.